Hey everybody, I'm going to try and talk today. Oh, stop wiggling. Okay. I'm going to try and talk today a little bit about the why Pokemon investing is popular and why it works. I think a lot of people get really into the minutia of, this particular set is doing really well, or this one is about to take off. I have a really well-formed opinion on why it works, and I don't feel like we have those kind of higher level understandings about it. And I'm not satisfied in life when I don't understand why something does the thing that it does. You not necessarily need to know why, but to me it's frustrating. It's a piece that I need to figure out, otherwise I can't replicate it. Background in science, microbiology in particular. So that is something that always bugs me. But I think I've kind of got all the pieces together in my brain, and I want to kind of get it out there, see what the YouTube Poca economics team feels about it. A lot of people talk about sets going out of print. They go up in value. It's very well known. It's very well understood. There's a couple things that go into play here. One is that Pokemon has to stay relevant. That cultural aspect of it. There's some very good YouTube investors talking about collectibles, and the example that I give is a Free Willy 2 booster box. It's very rare, but you can get it on eBay for about $12. There's not a lot of cultural resonance or impact that Free Willy 2 had on most people. Maybe there's a couple people out there who didn't know that existed and now are going to go look and corner the market on Free Willy 2 booster boxes. Go for it. Have fun. Don't think it's going to come back into the cultural zeitgeist. Pokemon has been in the cultural zeitgeist for 25 years now. Plus, right? So having that cultural staying power is a very, very good thing for Pokemon. And there's the supply and demand, which people do know about, where the supply of unopened cards is going down. And as the cards inside those packs get more valuable, more packs get opened. There is, a supply and demand curve where the opened packs and the cards meet and push each other higher. It's a deflationary asset, and our money is by nature and by necessity of an economy inflationary. Inflationary money supply means that people incur debt to make more money. It keeps people need to be employed. There's not just two or three people who own all the stuff and can just sit on it. So the idea of having a deflationary asset in the world of an inflating money supply and an inflationary economy is very, very appetizing. The one piece that doesn't really get talked about too much is the cultural relevance of it and the necessity of that being continually a thing. I don't think that Pokemon is ever going to go away. I know people give them a lot of crap for the game's deteriorating value or the or in terms of the game's deteriorating in experience or staying the same. But it's a perpetual nostalgia machine at this point. The people who went through Pokemania in 1998 are now millennials, and they are entering their prime working age, and they have money. And the amount of money they have and are going to inherit over the coming years is going to be large compared to other generations. Millennials, being the children generally of baby boomers, are set to inherit the earth. And I, as an elder millennial, really have been ahead of the curve a lot in terms of different investments, different things that people have experienced within this economy. I invested in Dogecoin in 2013, 2014. Obviously, that was a great idea in retrospect. And now I've kind of rediscovered Pokemon in the past couple of years. on the back end of the pandemic. I think like a lot of people did, a lot of the YouTubers that started that have been in this hobby just recently. There's a couple great things about that. The fact that our money supply is going up and the Pokemon supply for each set is a determined number. We don't know what that number is, but there's a certain existing number in the environment. And so as the money supply goes up and that Pokemon number stays the same, their value will intrinsically rise as long as interest is maintained in the hobby. It's the same thing with a lot of other collectibles, a lot of other cultural, historical antiques, things that maintain cultural relevance. That's the important part, which is why, there's going to be a point in time where Pokemon might not be the thing anymore. If this generation of children doesn't really vibe with it, then in 20, 30 years, Pokemon cards might not be worth hardly a thing. But for right now, the cultural resonance, the people who grew up with it hitting their stride, and then another 20 years from now, most definitely a second cultural resonance where I should describe or define what I mean by cultural resonance is a event within a culture doesn't exist within a certain isolated point in time. It has effects on the future of those generations, and it has effects on the offspring of those generations. Ask anybody who grew up with somebody whose parent was in the Great Depression. They saved, they're all hoarders. They saved cans, they saved newspapers, just in case you had to use them to pad your shoes. They saved every single piece of food ever. They would wear their equipment, cars, clothes into the ground. Very waste not, want not kind of a generation. And they imbued that kind of on their children as well. Getting back to my main point, the cultural resonance is the effect of a cultural event, not just in that one point in time, but later in a generation's life cycle. So for me, growing up with Pokemon Red and Blue, trading card games, playing the trading card game with my brother, now picking it back up, teaching my daughter the video games, going to Pokemon Preludes tournaments. That cultural resonance is kicking forward. It is propelling itself with that perpetual nostalgia machine of Pokemon. And the thing that really is going to be interesting is in 10, 15, 20 years, whatever the next big, huge jump for Pokemon is going to have a lot to do with the cultural resonance of the pandemic. I think a lot of people are going to look back and think, oh man, I used to open up Lost Origin with my Uncle Johnny in 2021 when we had nothing to do other than sit inside, play video games, and he showed me all of his old Pokemon cards, and that was something that I really valued. He gave some to me, I still have them. I wonder what they're worth now. And maybe my daughter or my son will like that. So Pokemon's ability to be a perpetual nostalgia machine combined with that supply and demand dynamic, combined with an inflating monetary supply, means that we've got a recipe for continued success in the ever expanding value of Pokemon cards. One other thing that I want to note, I'll show off some of my prettier pieces here. UMax Climax, nice display case. One other thing that I found really interesting, which people haven't really clued into as much as well, is we've got a really big distrust of institutions, governments, even our money right now. There's not a faith in the powers that be to steer us clear of calamity, I would say. And that has given people a lot of pause into what they do with their assets, with their money, with their time. I think that what a lot of people see, if you have the choice between having money and having a sealed box of Dark Phantasma, some people will choose this. I choose at least some of my money to go into this because I think it's got a better chance of being worth more than the money I put up for it in 5-10 years. That necessitates a level of distrust with the powers that be to not or to do that represents a level of distrust in the powers that be, that they will do worse with our money and with our money supply than this box of cards will over the coming years. I don't think people acknowledge that level of distrust. I don't think a lot of people understand that when they invest in other things, especially collectibles. You see it a lot more in people who talk about investing in gold or Bitcoin or real estate, right? Those are much more obvious, like, levels of distrust in money. And again, it has to do with the nature of money. It has to do with the nature of our economies. We have an ever-expanding monetary supply because it has to be. Because if it didn't, then your goal is to just get enough money to be able to lend it out, to be able to not do anything, more or less, to just sit on it. And eventually, there's going to be 2 or 3 people that have all of it, and everybody else who has none of it. And then this is kind of similar to what you've seen in failed communist nations before. It ends up that the population decides to separate not the money from the wealthy, but the heads of the wealthy from the shoulders. So there's a lot of problems if you don't have that inflationary money supply, but it also means that choosing the right vehicle or choosing the right asset class at the right time is really, really important to what it is that that your money does for you. Money is only optionality, right? It's options to do what you might want. A big thing going around the internet right now, or at least in this space, is that guy on CNN who's talking about like a 20% allocation to alternate asset classes, collectibles, so forth and so on. Definitely a good idea. That level of allocation, maybe that's high, maybe that's not high. I'm not sure. If I had to put it into terms of like what I'm doing with mine, I would say 2 to 3% maybe is what I'm at. Maybe up to 5% in terms of what it is we're looking at. The hard thing is you need to have a buyer at the end of all this. And if there comes a time where all of a sudden our money becomes very, very valuable very quickly, there's going to be a lot of sellers and there's going to be more tentative buyers. We're going to have to see deflation, really, for that to happen. Aggressive deflation. Right now, that's not a problem. But if in the coming years, as baby boomers age, other countries age, we see less of a demand for stuff in general, you could see just a drastic increase in demand for dollars. And what that does to a collectible market, we don't know entirely, but we've got good ideas. And if everybody is, even if you have a really, really well-performing asset, if everything becomes very cheap and you've got an asset that's doing well, generally people are bad investors, so they're going to sell the thing that's done well and buy the things that are doing crappy. You can call it rebalancing, you can call it whatever it is you want to call it. That's what will happen. What I really want to get at here is kind of a deeper level understanding of why this works. And I think that the rationale for why this works is straightforward, but has a lot of different things that play into it. You don't necessarily need to know all of this, but you also might want to look at other things that you believe will have cultural relevance, cultural reverberations, cultural resonance over time, because those are also going to be the things that collectible-wise could do well. I don't have anything off the top of my head that really screams to me with the finance world right now, that or anything from the COVID pandemic other than Pokemon. But that's been my main source of interest in terms of alternative assets. I have a very strong belief in Bitcoin doing very well over time. And I think that those assets seem correlated, but they're not correlated because of people buy cards with Bitcoin. That's not how this works. It's correlated with the distrust of our money, distrust of our money supply, distrust of the optionality of what our money can do for us in the future. Anybody who's trying to buy a house, has bought a house, I know, shout out to Pokemart USA, he's talked about buying a house and how crappy that is right now, and trying to get that done. So it's just really, really tricky because of the distrust that everybody has for their money. People are going anywhere they can, even with interest rates being high, saying, hey, you can have more money, you can have 5% more money per year right now by doing nothing. People still don't trust it. The level of performance of Pokemon cards in particular over the interest rate hike cycle was mind-boggling to me. It's a very resilient category, and seeing Fusion Strike right now go $230, $240 a box, man, it is crazy to see how well some of these asset classes are doing versus some things that I had previously invested in or still have some investment in, not doing great. It's a highly resilient asset class, more so than I think anybody really understands in the mainstream. But with enough people talking about it on YouTube, I think a lot of people understanding that this is something real. I talk to my wife about it all the time, and show her like the RCSV figure collection, which has gone up 150% in the last 2 years. And like, hey, bought this for $20, put it in a literal closet, it's gone up 150%. It's not a big thing. It's not, $20 to $50. It's like, ooh, that's not crazy. But it'll pay for a babysitter for, when I sell it at a local card show here. I'll have to take my camera and my phone and take some video shots at one of the card shows that I do here locally in North Carolina. But it's just a super cool asset class to follow and explore. The different iterations of how it works, the different levels at which it works, the different reasons for why it works are very, very good. And one thing that always sticks in the back of my mind is we trust Pokemon Company International more than we do the US government to treat their assets correctly and to have them appreciate in value. Because they could go back and they could reprint VMAX, Climax. They could make another 1 million boxes right now if they wanted to. Nothing says they can't. But they won't. There's a social contract there. And I think we saw the fallout with Magic 30 and what happens when you break that social contract, where if you really screw over your customers, if you really screw over the people who are engaging in that secondary market, they're going to punish you heavily. So it is a super cool asset class, and I hope this all makes sense in terms of the way that I outlaid it. You can't just choose a random thing with artificial scarcity and have it work for you in the long run. It's not how it's going to work. There's a lot of old junk out there that people don't want. This has a lot more aspects to it that people do want and do engage with. I think also the fact that the arts are at such a crazy, crazy high level right now, that Yurda is a delightful card. The fact that the art style is at an all-time high, the fact that you have the cultural resonance of, my childhood now combined with my family's childhood, or my daughter's childhood, is something not to be scared of and not to be too nervous about. I see a lot of negativity right now in terms of really gotta sell. I mean, you can if you want, but the fact that people are going to come back to this stuff in 15, 20 years and say, you know what, I really want to have a box of Evolving Skies to open because during the pandemic, I so wanted to pull that Moonbreon. And oh my god, now a pack of Evolving Skies is $100. But I could spend that at the casino, or I could spend it on this. I think I'm gonna have more fun doing this. There's just so much going for it. And I think there'll come a time where it's not as popular, or we go back to a point to where it's kind of in a lull. We almost we had like a little bit of that at the start of Scarlet and Violet, I feel like, but there is enough good content, fantastic art, and continued expansion of value in these sets that I am just very, very happy to be involved in it. I think that's about all in terms of my thoughts on it. I would say if you're interested in investing in it, there's tons of channels out there right now that are going to do a better job of getting to the nitty-gritty of what to invest in. Nostalgianomics does a great job. Pokemart, I've been in his Discord for about a year now. They are very, very smart with the nitty-gritty of this. One thing I would say, if you're watching this far and are curious about like what not to do in investing in this, don't get too cute. You don't need to. This is a very small hobby. This is a very niche, small dollar value industry by relative terms. So don't try and outthink anything here. It's really not worth your time to get super in the weeds if you don't want to. If you find a card that you really love or set that you really adore and it's super in the weeds, go for it. But people are gonna generally like the original 151 Pokemon in some iteration, in some form, in a set, and they're generally gonna like what everybody else likes. You don't have to go super galaxy brain with this stuff. It's probably not going to work out for you in the long run. So take the most popular sets, get some cases of them, put them in the closet, and you're pretty good. I, in particular, really have a fondness for the Japanese cards. They always felt a little bit exotic and special to me as a kid. I had like 2 or 3 that I traded for. I had a Japanese Rocket Scyther, and I'd never seen that card before, and it was super cool. And that's still one that I have in my collection. But that you really don't have to get too cute with it. Buy what you like, buy what other people like, more importantly, if you're really looking to do investing correctly. You don't have to like a stock in order to invest in it. If that's the way you're treating this hobby, or if that's the way you're treating investing, be consistent with it, for sure. And I would say also, people talk about diversification. Don't bother in this hobby, I would say. You don't really have to. If you really want to, you can. I am somewhat diversified in terms of stuff that I really like. But if you find a set that's going to do really, really well, Evolving Skies has taught us anything. It's that go with what's winning and what's good and what's easy. If I'm looking around the marketplace right now, thinking about that, I don't think we've seen that in Scarlet and Violet yet. I think Paldea Evolve's probably the closest thing with Magikarp, but other than that, you have nothing to invest in right now other than the final last hurrah of Sword and Shield before it goes out of stock on the Pokemon Center. And what I did was I picked up about 20 boxes of the heavy hitters because they're going on clearance at Sam's Club, and broke those down recently. So the unsexy part of this hobby is breaking down boxes and having your wife say, "What the hell is that?" in the back of your car. But it is what it is, right? So hopefully that all makes sense. It's kind of a ramble, kind of just expanding on my thoughts of how this market works. It's super simple, but the reasoning behind why it's so simple and why it's like cards go up over time, sealed product goes up over time, fairly nuanced and fairly layered. And take advantage of it now, because if our children don't like Pokemon, or if our children's children don't like Pokemon, you're gonna have some super cool stuff to open when you're 70, 80, but probably not gonna be worth anything. It'll be just fun to show your kids, and they're like, "Thanks, Grandpa. I don't care what you did in 2022, but thanks for that, I guess." So yeah, there's a lot of cool people in this hobby. Make sure you take advantage of all the just excellent, super in the weeds level knowledge that they have, and use that to your best efforts. All right. Anyways, have a good one.